I'm Max Naumov. I'm here today to answer your questions from the internet. This is Figure Skating Support. All right, this question comes from IGK Soline. How do figure skaters not get incredibly dizzy and just kind of die? That's funny. So honestly, we actually do get dizzy, but not as much. That's the thing. We end up doing spins over and over and over again just on one practice, and that happens throughout days and months and years. So over time, your body just gets used to that, and you have a much better ability to get yourself undizzy really quick. Your brain starts to realize kind of the RPMs of what you're spinning at, and it begins to adjust. Now, granted, if you stay in the spin for a very long time, longer than usual, you will still get dizzy. This next question is from Dar_winning. That's really good, I like that. Hello, figure skaters. Could someone explain the difference between all the jumps in the sport? Okay, so in our sport, we have 6 different jumps. Axel, Salchow, and toe loop jump. Those all take off from the left foot. Then you have your loop, flip, and Lutz jump. Those are taking off on the right. We also have 3 toe jumps and 3 edge jumps. We have Salchow, loop, then Axel. That is going to be your edge jumps. Then you have your toe jumps, which is flip, Lutz, and toe. The edge jumps are done much differently than the toe jumps. You have to use the momentum and you have to kind of use your edge quality to lift yourself up from the edge, from the rocker. The toe jumps is where you use the toe pick to launch yourself off the ice, and we always, no matter what jump it is, we land on our right foot if you do rotate counterclockwise. And the axel is the only jump that takes off forward. That's actually one of my favorite jumps, and you count it in half rotations, right? So waltz jump, that basic one is half rotation. Then you have your 1.5, which is single axel, 2.5 double axel, 3.5 triple axel. Since you take off forward and you land backwards, that's where the extra half revolution comes from. Next question comes from Honeydew Halo 25. Does anyone have tips to get over the mental block of jumping? The mental block is really just a lot of doubt, just not quite being as confident as you need to be going into jumps. There's things that help out. We have, we call it the fishing pole. So you attach a harness and the coach skates behind you and they lift you. So that gives you a little bit of a way to practice the jump without actually going into it yourself. And the other thing is just going back to either singles or doubles, really working on the basics and the singles and the doubles until you feel really confident to just slightly add that extra bit of rotation. You know, the fear and the doubt, that's all part of the process of landing new elements. One of the best things that has helped me really is just taking it step by step from singles to doubles, and then triples. Kind of try to think of it like a double into rotation instead of thinking of it, oh my gosh, I'm going for triple, right? A Reddit user asks, do skaters know when they under-rotate? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. I find that with jumps that have more rotation, it's actually a little bit more difficult to know when you under-rotated, just because you're rotating so quickly. When you get to the ice, it happens really fast when you land. So even if it's a slight cheat, your body doesn't even feel it, honestly. When it comes to jumps that have less rotation, you're in the air longer and you're rotating a bit slower, so it's very clear when you do a cheated jump. When you take off onto your jump, you don't take off just straight like this. You take off as you're rotating. So whichever direction that your blade is taking off in, you have to land backwards in that same direction. So for example, let's say you're taking off this way and you land only a quarter turn to backwards, kind of relative to how you took off. That's going to be a quarter turn under rotated, or as we call it, Q. Now, when you have a more severe under rotation, that's called a downgraded jump, where you might take off forward, you do your rotations in the air, and then you can land actually forward and turn the rest of the time on the ice. That's going to be a severe under rotation called a downgrade. Next question comes from important_target 2141. How to overcome embarrassment when falling? I'm still working on it. So embarrassment is part of the process as well, especially when you're learning a new jump. There's a process where you're falling over and over and over again, and it can get really frustrating. The other time when that happens is when you already mastered an element, and then you come into the ice one day, you're feeling a little bit off, and you start falling on really easy stuff. And then you're kind of looking around like, well, did anyone see that? Or, what's wrong with me today? That's really embarrassing that I'm falling on some really easy stuff. The truth is, everybody feels that way. You have to acknowledge the fact that you are going to feel those feelings, but in reality, it's all part of the process. And guys, skaters that are Olympians, they make mistakes all the time. It's the skaters that do fall on easy stuff that continue to get up and keep going and try it again. Those are the skaters that are going to be, successful in this sport. This next question comes from Leo is Lion, LOL. What are some things you would want to see in the perfect choreo sequence? Backflip. That has been the talk of the past few years. If you hit that thing, the crowd goes nuts. And it is so much fun to do, I'll tell you that. This question comes from Restaurant Vast 7942. Do you think we will ever see a skater attempt a quintuple jump? 100%. When you look at Ilya Malinin and the way that he's rotating, he's doing a quad axel. What a quad axel is 4.5 rotations on the ice. You take off forward, you rotate 4.5 times and land backwards on one foot. It's insane. The difference between that quad axel and a quintuple jump is only a half of a rotation. So, I'm not speaking for Ilya, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to be doing it. And man, I cannot wait to see that. This next question comes from IWT Peace. I have a bunch of couple figure skating videos on my For You page right now, and I'm falling in love just watching them. How do they not fall in love with each other? Okay, that's actually a great question too. It's almost like a theatrical performance, right? You go see a ballet, the man and the woman really just doing their lifts, and they choreograph this beautiful step sequence to a certain piece of music that can be very romantic, right? And honestly, sometimes they do end up falling for each other. It happens a lot. But it's part of the performance. It's part of being a really good artistic skater with high components, is to have the audience and the crowd feel that way, whether or not that actually is the case, which I think is really cool. This next question comes from Scale Glittering 6161. It's been 8 months. I can't do the backspin. Any tips? The backspin is one of the first things that we learn actually how to do in skating. You enter on a forward inside edge, you quickly turn, and you have to do your back scratch spin on a back outside edge. You spin really quickly, and the idea is that you have to stay centered. The more centered you can stay, the better. My tip for that would be to find the bowl of the edge. What ends up happening a lot of times is people start to spin and they start rocking from the heel to the toe. And that's where you're trying to find balance actually, and it could be really tricky. When you find the bowl of the edge, you'll find a certain stability in your spin. Your bottom toe pick could be on the ground, but right here is where you're going to be spinning. The rock that we're talking about, if you can find your balance in this position, that's going to help stabilize your spin. And the faster you spin, actually, the easier it is. This next question comes from Typhoid Sergey. How does throwing gifts on the ice work? So this is something that's really cool. After the skaters finish with their performance, the audience will throw, stuffed animals, toys. One time someone threw me a chocolate bar on the ice. So, you never know what you can get. But they throw gifts on the ice after you finish, and we have sweepers, which are usually children that are part of the local club, and they collect all the gifts and they put them into bags, and later backstage we can go ahead and grab them and take them home. Certain skaters, the audience knows what they like. Like, for example, Yuzuru Hanyu, he had Winnie-the-Pooh, and after every competition he finished, it would just rain Winnie-the-Poohs, which was unbelievable to see. All right, this question is from C2 Cali. Does Maxim Naumov collect anything on the ice? Yes, I like polar bears a lot. So I have a few of them actually at home. It's really cool. I actually try to grab as many as I can when I go to the Kiss and Cry and kind of just show them on the big screen. The Kiss and Cry is the area where the athlete and the coach will go to see their scores. But a lot of sweet moments happen there. You get to see the skater's personality a little bit, and the idea is that you can cry if it's not that good, and you can give kisses if it's good. So. All right, this next question is from Chrono Cosmos. It's actually a cool name, Chrono Cosmos. How does a figure skater find out they're going to the Olympics? This is usually a phone call, and they say, come meet us at a certain place, and you don't know what you're meeting them for. It's a really big surprise. This next question comes from Where the Iupi. Would you rather have 1 gold medal or 5 silver medals? This is actually a really interesting question. I would rather have 5 silver medals. I'll tell you why. When you look at 1 gold medal, that is something that you did that one time, and that's it. When you look at 5 silver medals, that's you showing consistency back to back to back to back to back. The sport is all about consistency. You want to show that your ability to do something and to perform happens over and over and over again. This question comes from Werewolf Science. What helped you the most while learning to rotate jumps? What helped me the most was understanding how and where to get your power from. And it's not just about power, it's about speed, it's about timing. And when you combine all of those three things together, that is where you can be the most efficient. Your body always finds the most efficient way to do something. Most of the time, technique-wise, it's not the best way to do it. So you have to reprogram your body to make certain technical moves become subconscious movement. The subconscious movement is way, way quicker than conscious movement, up to like 700 milliseconds before the movement even starts. Your brain already knows what to do. Think of the term muscle memory. That's essentially what that is. It's your body knowing what to do before you even start to do it. This next question is from Lays and Chutney. Why is quad loop so hard? Loop is my least favorite jump. I'm gonna say that right now. I'm not alone in this. But the reason for that is because you are starting on your back outside edge. I have nothing to kind of generate a bit more momentum and timing before the actual takeoff. So you're starting on your back edge and you have to generate as much torque and power with your hips and shoulders as you possibly can. And you got to launch yourself up. It's another edge jump. But the way that it's done is it's all on the right foot. So you take off and you land also on the right foot. So the hard part about that is just the amount of power and angular momentum that you can generate, from, again, just one simple edge. Next question comes from That Nurse Lifts. What is your worst figure skating fall or goof up story? Man, there's so many. My strap came undone at one competition. It happened in the very beginning part of my program. I didn't even notice it until maybe 15 to 20 seconds in. When you have your competition pants on, what ends up happening is that the pant will cover the top of the boot and it needs to stay down so it doesn't come up. There's a strap that goes actually underneath the boot and it straps and holds the pants tight this way. That strap ended up coming undone and it started dangling right here, right by the blade. I was moving fast, so it was just waving in the wind. And at any moment, it could have been game over for me. So I had to come to the referee, stop the music, and I took an entire roll of duct tape, actually, right here, this one, and I wrapped my entire pant to my boot so that nothing would be dangling or falling. And I picked up where I left off and we continued the program. This question comes from Sabo_Emerald. Advice on breaking in skates. When you get into new boots, the boot is very stiff. And what you have to do is actually a process called heat molding. So you would heat up the boot to a pretty hot temperature actually, and you would put your foot into the boot and sometimes even tape it or wrap it around for the boot to actually conform to your foot. A Reddit user asks, why do all figure skaters only spin in the left direction? The reason for that, I think, is because if you rotate to the left, you land on the right leg. So usually that's people's dominant leg. More stability, more strength. So you'd want your landings to be on your dominant leg. There's a lot of skaters that actually do spin the other way. And we do exercises and things like that all the time, both directions. It's really good for your coordination and just overall better skating quality. This next question comes from the Chris Lambert. How do they measure performance in figure skating? The way that they measure performance in figure skating is in 2 marks. You have your technical, which you get points for, and then you have your components. So technical is anywhere from your jumps to your spins to your step sequences, specific turns, things like that. The component side is going to be more your artistry. That's going to be your transitions, your interpretation, doing things to the music, choreography, things like that. Those 2 scores get combined together at the end of your performance, and then you get your final score. Some people get higher components, less technical, higher technical, less component. That's why skating is so beautiful. You need both. This next question comes from Constellation Hopper. Slang and words that figure skaters use. We have abbreviations for certain jumps, like instead of sow cow, you'll say, oh, I'm doing a sow. Or instead of toe loop, I'm doing a toe, right? Things like that, very easy. When you do a program run with no elements, that's called a skeleton. When the Zamboni comes out and it puts a layer of water over the ice to make it clean again with no scratches and no marks. We use slang and call it an ice make or an ice cut. You can say a flood. That's another thing that skaters say. Oh, there's a flood going on right now. We're going to hop on the next session. This next question comes from Cuneo. Do Olympic level skaters usually choreograph their own expos? Very rarely do athletes kind of do things on their own. We actually have choreographers that we work with to create an entire piece, a short program and the free skate. We work together. It's kind of something that as you get older, you can kind of put more input and you know your body a little bit better. You know what you're good at. And it's kind of a collaboration. You're part of the music selection process, part of the choreography process, and you do have input on where you want to do your jumps. What jumps are you doing? You have to create a program around all the technical. The next question comes from International Joke 49. What are some of the most difficult programs that have been performed. One way to look at it is, what is the most difficult program from a component standpoint, and what is the most difficult program from a technical standpoint? From a technical standpoint, I can tell you that in my field, in the men's division, Ilya Malinin has done the most difficult program by far. He's the only skater that's doing a quad axel right now in his free with all of those different quads that he's doing. From a technical standpoint, there's no one that's reaching him at all. From a choreography and component side, that's more up to, the audience and the judge's interpretation. And that's scored out of 10. So it's very rare that skaters, even of the highest quality, will get those 10s in the components. You look at skaters like Jason Brown, you look at skaters like Patrick Chan, like Yuzuru, like Javier Fernandez. All those guys, they perform not only just a program, but it's a piece of art. And also, I have the utmost respect for the pairs because they also have to jump. They also have to spin. They do everything that we do, but they have throws, they have lifts, they have twist. And those pairs girls, man, I don't know how their knees and ankles are holding up, honestly. I got so much respect for them. They get launched. Talk about launched. So I have the most respect. I think, in my opinion, the most difficult is that pairs. I mean, doing that last lift at the end of the program, I know how hard it is at the end of the program. That 4-minute mark, and you have to do a lift? Are you kidding me? This next question is from Fire Flames Frost. How did you pick your blades? I actually have the John Wilson Revs right here. We call these the Revolutions. These are my blades that I've been rocking for multiple years already. So the figure skating blade is actually interesting. You would think that it's actually completely flat. However, that's not the case. What ends up happening is the blade is flatter towards the heel, and then it comes up like this towards the toe pick. We call this area right here the bowl of the edge, or the rocker. So this is actually where you do all of your turns. So when you place the blade down here, you'll see that it rocks back and forth without it going to the toe pick. This is something that allows us to do our turns. It allows us to control our inside and our outside edges. And of course, when we're spinning, we're actually spinning on that part right here where the heel is coming up, and that bottom toe pick right here is on the ice. And that's why you hear that sound, like shh, like that. So Gold Seal Revolution, these are the blades that I switched to actually when I was fairly young. The way that I describe it is like you're driving a Honda Civic, you pop these on, you're in a Ferrari. When you start to upgrade your blades, you start to notice, man, that spin was a lot easier than before actually. A Reddit user asks, can someone explain how skaters choose their music? What we do as a team is we sit down, we kind of think about the music that each person brings to the table. Someone might have heard it from a movie or a show or just other research. You might hear it in the store. You never know. If I skate to something emotional, it's usually something that I'm genuinely going through at that point in time. There's not a question of, man, I have to pretend to be X or Y or Z. You are that, and you get to share that. Almost like actors, same way. This question comes from cat_poo-poos. Love that. Why do ice/roller skaters skate backwards? In order to create a transition or a setup for a jump or a landing or a spin, we have to be able to rotate forward and backward and do a lot of elements both ways. Setups for jumps, setups for spins, certain turns, those all have to be done from a backwards entry. Or when you land something, you're also going backwards. So another area where you have to be able to do both. It is easier to skate forwards at first, but we very, very quickly teach skaters to turn around and get comfortable going backwards. It's a massive and integral part of skating. This next question is from Jam Jenison. What is one skate that you always come back to? So there's actually two in my mind. 2002. Salt Lake City, Evgeny Plushenko free program, and Alexei Yagudin free program. It is such a epic moment in figure skating. Those two were duking it out, and I go back to that because early 2000s figure skating, massive popularity. We have Scott Hamilton commentating. Big shout out to Scott Hamilton. I literally know word for word what he's gonna say. That's how many times I rewatched this program. That entire event was so inspirational to me as an athlete, and I wanted to be just like those guys. Another program that comes to mind is Javier Fernandez 2016 Worlds. I was there. It was so loud with the crowd roaring. 10 seconds before he even finished skating, became the world champion. Just unreal. That question is from Examination Fancy. How do you know when it's time to sharpen your blades? The skating blade is really interesting because it actually has, again, a little bit of a concave, and that's called your hollow. And the hollow is actually what creates that sharpness. There's different types of sizes. There's 7/16, there's half, all different types of things that are personal to the skater, how they like it. Either really sharp, it could be like a knife sometimes, or it could be very light sharpening, so you don't really notice it that much. But yeah, the blade is actually, you can touch it, you can even bring your hands alongside this way, it's not gonna cut you. So yeah, you can, a lot of times when we sharpen or when we check things, you can even do this thing here where you check it with your nail, how sharp it is. And you can see a nail shavings coming off and you're like, okay, that side is sharp. Then you check this side as well. You say, okay, everything is soft. And you check it at every part of the blade, all the way up to the rocker, which is actually the most important, is to find the sharpest part. Everybody is different too. Some people like to sharpen their skates very often. Some people don't sharpen them for 2 months even. A lot of times actually what ends up happening is some skaters will go into a jump that has a tight edge and slip off the edge. We do not want that to happen to know it's time to sharpen your blades. These were some really good questions. If we get some more knowledge in skating, it could be even more popular. I want to grow the sport as much as possible. So shout out to you guys. This was so much fun. Thanks for watching.